You mentioned your version of the promise. How have you adapted the promise for your practice?
I can talk. I said, Steve, thank you so much for selecting the Caroline Coco Group to represent you in this journey.
Mhm.
And I want to make a few promises to you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And yes, all right. The first promise is we're going to make this as fun, as seamless, as joyful for you as possible.
Mhm.
And we want you to just shout from the rooftops how happy you are after we've met your goal. Does
Mhm.
that sound okay to you?
That sounds great, actually.
All
Yeah.
right. So
Mhm.
that's our number one promise.
Mhm.
And our number two promise is that things might go sideways. And
Mm.
when it does, our promise to you is that we're going to be around you, over you, under, leading you to solve that problem so that we can get to goal. Is that all right?
Yeah, let's hope not too much sideways, and
Yeah,
yet
and so when it does, we're going to come back to this conversation and say, "Remember when we had this conversation?"
Mhm.
And number three is you are going to be so delighted with this experience that you would like to introduce us to others, just like you.
I love that.
So, are these three promises? Do they sound okay to you?
Yeah, they do.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I use the word introduce versus
Yeah.
refer.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've heard this before, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I may have Mike do his version, you do your version, because we've got so many different behavioral styles, in the room, and they'll just hear it differently. Because I asked Mike the question. I said, Mike, I go around as a bold coach and my teachings, and I share the promise with people all the time, and I'm just surprised that more people don't implement this.
It's
And
it's so great,
mm,
and we have our promise calls, so there's a cadence.
yeah.
So we have a concierge who'll call, uh, just checking in on our client experience.
Mhm.
Steve, this is Haley, client concierge. We just want to call and check in. Are we delivering on our promise? And then ask for the introduction. Great. Who else do you know? It's so simple. I mean, it is what you bold coaches teach us,
Mhm.
MAPS coaches teach us. So
You got it. So, you talked about bringing value was one of the key elements to making sure that you're bringing the experience. And what does value mean to you and the kind of client base and what you're dealing with? How do you make sure value shows up and they experience it?
Uh, um, number one is that it's the experience is not cookie cutter. It is templated, so you have a system. However, within that system, you have to know your client. It's what Phil Jones says, show me that you know me.
Mhm. Ooh,
Right.
that's a good one. Yeah. Mhm.
So whether it is how they like to communicate, how they like to receive information, how they like to, if you call, are you should I allow 100, I mean, the 30 minutes for this conversation, or should
Mhm.
I allow 5 minutes because you're boom, 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 right?
Mhm.
So really knowing your client so that you can deliver the experience in the way they believe is of value.
Mhm.
If we're all high Ds and we're running high Ds and our client is a S, it's not going to translate, even though we're doing everything we can, but we're doing it a certain way.
Yeah.
So, and then number two is understanding what's really important to them, and then the surprises and delights along the way,
Yeah.
right? It is making an experience unforgettable for them.
Yeah. So give me an example of where you really a special need. What would be an example recently in that last year or so of something you did to create those wow or memorable moments that was maybe unique for a certain individual or type of person?
Sure. I gave a lemon tree example at Mega Agent Camp, so they may have heard that already. Another one would be, okay, um, a client of ours was saying that she never had time. She didn't have a lot of time with her family,
Mhm.
and she was working so hard. And then she wished she could take her kids here. She wished she could take her kids there. So, in a closing gift, instead, or yes, it was a closing gift. Instead of giving her a keychain or a branded mug, we gave her a family pass to the Curiosity Museum,
Oh, wow.
and she had never been, right? So, and there was times where we actually scheduled out babysitters for her.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
So, and it doesn't have to be a lot, it doesn't have to be costly. So
Mhm,
the lemon tree is a client, she was in her 80s
mhm,
and she moved to assisted living. And I asked her what was one thing that she loved about her home that we were selling. And she said it was a lemon tree
mm.
because she received it as a sapling for her wedding. And they had moved that tree throughout their moves. And now it's grown, it's set roots. So at closing, instead of another mug, keychain, frame, blanket, we actually cut a branch off that tree, planted it so that she could have it with her in her final home.
Oh, wow.
So $50, $100 blanket or a $30 pot and soil, which is more impactful.
Yeah. Couldn't have been a better gift. Amazing. Amazing. Um, you mentioned client events. What are the top 2 events that are the highest impact for you?
Sure. I would say it is our spring networking event. And that was created a few years ago when I realized, okay, all the events we're throwing are about us. How about we create an event about them?
Mm,
And how do we support them in what they want to do in their businesses and their lives? So the first event we had was a women's networking event. It was in my home,
mhm,
and and there was a very strategic way to, even in the seating arrangement. So
mhm.
I knew we had um, a venture capitalist, and I knew she wanted to start a charity. Then I also knew there was somebody in the nonprofit world, so I had them sit together. By the end of that dinner, they came out with a new idea and they created a whole new nonprofit together.
Wow. How cool is that?
Another one that we did last year was just our state attorneys, our wealth managers, our other attorneys, high level referral partners,
Mhm.
Allied Resources, Allied Sphere. And I invited them to bring one more person in their world. And then we had a very private, and I wanted them to get to know each other because they could be sending referrals to each other.
Right.
And then from that, we received a $6 million buyer referral, which we closed in a few months.
Mhm.
But they brought somebody that we didn't know.
Yeah. Nice. Love it.
So it's about coming from contribution and value.
Excellent. You mentioned CRM tags. This is one of course, the most important things in really organizing a database. How do you use your segmenting of your database with tags to create unique experiences?
Sure. We tag everyone, and our operations team was like too many tags. However, for the agents, like we want these tags.
Mhm.
And for example, I mean, is it high? Do they want high rise living? Do they want multi units?
Mm,
Are they retiring? Are they first time home buyers? Because that will help us give out different messaging, right?
mhm.
If we're blanket messaging the entire database, Steve, you may be a seasoned investor with 5 different investment properties all over the world, and I'm
Right.
sending you first time home buyer information, you're going to unsubscribe very quickly.
Yeah.
So we look at what is the information this segment needs to receive, and we push out information there. What
Excellent.
is information, and then what are the workshops that we can create for this segment versus this segment,
Mhm,
right? So that's the importance of tags. And then we have agent referral tags as well, all the different communities we belong to, and how do we message them,
mhm.
etc.
Well, and that's where you're now customizing the experience, right? It goes
That's
back.
right.
It's show me you know me again, and that what I'm getting is relevant and to me. That's cool. Good. That's awesome. Um, Now this is a big one right now. We talked about the shifting market, and you commented on overcoming the noise, making sure they're getting correct information. And Gary would say it's our message and our mofer, that's relevant for today that matches the market. And what are you doing to combat the noise in your messaging today?
We're giving them relevant local information.
Mhm.
And we always start the conversation, what have you heard about the market?
Exactly.
Right? What have you, because I want to understand what they are hearing
Hmm.
so that I can actually combat it or lack of a different word, correct the information they're receiving. That's great. That's what you're hearing. Let us show you what's happening in your local market.
Hmm. Yeah.
A-
Yeah.
And
Well,
this,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead. Yes, no, that was it.
Well, I was just saying what we're teaching right now in our Never Ending Referrals program, Tammy Ext and I, is that asking that question gives you the opportunity to either validate what they said or
Right.
or educate. So it's a validate or educate opportunity. Most powerful question you can ask right now, because rather than just throw up all this
Oh,
stuff about the market, let's find out where their head's at. Yeah,
yes. Ask more questions.
yeah, fantastic. Uh, you mentioned the 6 Ds. I know it's death, divorce, diapers, diplomas. I don't know what the other two are.
Okay, death, divorce, diapers, dividends. So it's if they come into inheritance or there is this large, infusion, bonus, whatever. Death, divorce, diapers, dividends, deployment. So not just
Deployment.
military, but relocation,
Yeah,
um,
didn't remember that one.
and disaster, of course. Right.
Oh,
So
that'd
we
be
don't,
sad.
we don't. So that means insurance to me, right? So
Yeah.
we really, so how do you build an economy proof
Mhm.
business and allied referral sphere? So how do you get to know people that are in those worlds?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and one of the missions I would have for this panel, one of the things when I go in the bold room, Caroline, and I'm in the habit of asking every bold room, how many of you can legitimately tell me you've got 36 plus touches going to your database every year? Stand up. And it's usually many times it's 5% or less, and it's rarely over 10%. And this is what I'm noticing with teams in my market centers and in my coaching relationships, is that the ones that have relationship based businesses are doing well right now, and the
Yes,
ones that were relying on lead flow from all kinds of third parties and stuff are struggling. And
you're right.
mhm,
You're right.
yeah.
You're right.
So it's a kind of a mission, that however many hundreds of people are in that room, leave and do something. And we've got to inspire them to not just go, dang, that was good. It's going, darn, I need to get to work. And,
Yes. And
and
this is how, right? Given the prescription.
yeah.
Uh,
And I think there, one of the things that wasn't in the questions, and I would have you ponder, is the mindset of somebody that runs a business this way. Because they hear a lot of to-dos, and then we also have to get them to think, was this just natural and easy for you, or did you go, okay, I learned that this is, I can't be transactional if I want to have a great business. I've got to be relational. And
yeah.
mhm,
Yes, it's definitely something that my parents were real estate investors, and so I got to I had the opportunity to see how they were treated, and also before in real estate, my husband and I purchasing homes and seeing the differences between the types of agents, and
yeah,
of course receiving all the marketing and everything. I'm like, this is irrelevant to me. I don't care. And then
yeah.
I rather have fewer touches that are meaningful than 100 touches that are not meaningful.
Mm, well said. Well said. Yeah. That gets you through the noise, because there's that better connection. So
And
I
you
go to
sound different.
the last question I had for you again was the three things you want to make sure they take away from Caroline, and that you're most passionate about communicating around this. Of all this, what's
What
the
did I write? I forgot.
I didn't ask you that question before. So
Oh,
that's my
okay.
that's my final question to you. I just like, oh no, because that wasn't in there. I'm like, well, because there may not have been an answer, there may not have been a question that queued that up. And it's like, man, what's the most important thing we should be asking you? Or the two or three things you just want to make sure that get out there on the table. Anything we didn't talk about that should be included in this?
I will think about those three things of how to get started if you
Yeah.
were in a business and you did not have a referral based business yet.
Yes.
And so what are the three things that I would recommend to get started?
Yeah.
How's that? Okay, I'll
Yeah,
think
and
about
I think just in the adoption of the mindset that somebody that's choosing to do business this way, it's just because we I think where we struggle is we go too much to the do and not enough to
right.
the the philosophy of, how you think
Yes,
to do
yes,
this.
yes.
And so, well, any questions for me?
No, I don't. This is
Cool.
great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, and Megan's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for all being so responsive. I appreciate it. And we'll have an awesome, I can't believe it's so close right now. I just
I
was
g
at breakfast this morning. I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm leaving next weekend. So
I know. I'm excited and also like, I'm not ready.
that's right. That's right. Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Bye
Right.
bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.